Hey guys, this is Wayne Hauser with bassbite.com. I'm here at David Fritz Outdoors with crankbait king David Wright. Now, David, what do you do this time of year? We're here in the end of July, first part of August, to catch fish on a crankbait.
Well, you know, it kind of depends on where you're fishing.
Okay.
Normally I throw it out there and wind it back.
All right, but let's say I'm on a lake like Kerr Lake this time of year, all right, or later in the fall. You know, what am I going to do? What type of crankbait should I be throwing? What type of areas should I be looking for to catch them on a crankbait?
Well, you know, one thing you always want to know any kind of fishing is about where the bait fish is located. Okay. And, you know, I always start searching for a fish with a crankbait, which I guess a lot of times that's not the best thing to do, but that's what I always do. Okay. And the next thing I need to know, though, is about how deep I'm going to have to be fishing. And I might have to, you know, do a little experiment and try to figure out exactly how deep to fish. Okay. Maybe kind of let the fish determine if I'm fishing too deep or not deep enough, depending on if I get any bites or not. But you know, this time of year, normally the water temperature is going to be pretty high, and even into the fall. So you know, I would probably in the mornings, I guess you could maybe start not fishing so deep, and deep is a relative term depending on what we're comparing it with. So deep is determined by, for me personally, by the lake I'm fishing. Okay. Like I live here at High Rock Lake, so deep on High Rock Lake is 10, 11 feet. Okay. Deep at Kerr Lake's like 20 to 25 feet. Okay. And it'll vary from every lake that you fish.
Based on water clarity mostly, correct?
Well, I wouldn't say that's something we always say. I'd say it has to do with the characteristics of the lake. Okay. And I mean, I don't know that much about water and oxygen and that kind of thing, but I do know that in High Rock, it's my theory that fish really don't go much deeper than 10 or 12 feet. There's some exceptions that you catch one 15, but they don't normally go like over 20 feet deep this time of year or any time, and I think that's because oxygen at that level depths of 20 feet or so is probably not good.
I got you.
Where at Kerr, evidently, it is good because you can catch them over 20 feet deep up there pretty easy.
I got you.
And that'll be the same for other lakes.
Now, like on High Rock and Kerr, what type of cover would you be throwing that crankbait at right now?
Yeah, well, I like it that you mentioned cover because I am a cover fisherman. When I fish a crankbait, I'm fishing cover. I'm not fishing for the fish. I'm fishing cover hoping there'll be a fish there. Okay. So I do fish and try to hit cover with my crankbait or get close to it because that's normally when I get a bite. And you know, in some lakes, in certain situations, you might be just fishing a crankbait for the fish. But I'd say I normally don't do that. Sometimes that happens that way, but I normally don't do that.
So now, do you try to look for rocks this time of year, stumps, brush piles? What kind of key deal are you looking for when you're fishing a lake like that this time of year?
I might be looking more for an area than exact cover. When I find the area, then I'd be more concerned with the type of cover I'm fishing. Because most of the time I found out it's not just the kind of cover. In other words, every fish in the lake's not going to be biting on rock. Although rock might be the primary pattern that day, there's probably some fish biting other ways too. So I'm going to be hunting the area I need to be fishing before I start trying to key on exactly what I need to be fishing in those areas.
I got you. Now, like on a lake like High Rock, I noticed you brought some crankbaits with you. What would you be throwing at them right now?
Well, in High Rock, as I told you, you normally don't have to fish all that deep. And I'd say probably one I fish the most this time of year would probably be something like this, which is a zoom crankbait that we refer to as a Z3 at a dive about 11 to 12 feet deep. Okay. On an unusual cast, I'd say most time 8 or 9 feet deep. And that depends too on the water level. High Rock's been up all year with, you know, when a foot or two are full, so you do need something to get down probably 12 feet. Okay. At least from time to time. Now that won't always be true. Sometimes you'll need one a little bit deeper, and I have one here that'll go a little bit deeper. Another zoom plug. We actually call this one a Z4. That's in the same color that'll, you know, dive down about, it'll probably dive 15 feet, maybe a little bit deeper.
And that's kind of a chartreuse with a brown back, right?
Yeah, it is. We actually call that chartreuse classic.
Okay.
That's actually what we read to it. It also have that in where you got white sides, still a brown back, and we call that just a classic. Okay. One with the yellow chartreuse in it, we call it chartreuse classic.
Okay, cool.
And I have another one here, a flat-sided crankbait that sometimes I think they like pretty good. And this one is the one that we just call classic. See, it's got white sides instead of chartreuse.
Right.
This one we call an ugly duck.
Okay.
And it's a thin plug. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Does it have a wider wobble than the
tighter.
others?
It'll have a tighter weird
Tighter wobble
than
than
the
the others.
others. And I'd say those probably three of my favorites. Although, you know, I do sometimes use some other types of crankbaits from time to time. I use DTs sometimes, which is a Rapala plug. But I have about any kind of zoom crankbait imaginable that I use from time to time.
Now, as the fall goes on, now you're hitting that 10 to 12 foot range right now, but as the fall goes on, do you start moving shallower?
Well, it depends on early fall or late fall, you know. I'd be more concerned about hunting the bait fish, about are they moving back into the creeks in, and I'd probably, you know, I'd say 9 feet is a pretty good depth to catch them on way on into the fall until it actually gets a lot colder.
I got you. Now, are you trying to key on points or creek channel bends, or what do you focus on?
Well, when I you know go to an area to practice, I normally number one, you know, would be fishing deeper probably this time of year and in the fall, and then gradually try to be finding some bait fish to fish, and then fishing cover, fishing. When I'm practicing, I'll be doing all kinds of things. You know, I'll be fishing flats that run out gently. I'll be fishing points that run, maybe even some creek channels. And on all those places, I'm going to be fishing cover. If I know where the cover's at, that's actually what I'm going to be fishing or hunting. Because like I say, I always key on cover. I use my depth finders to find cover, and I use my plugs to find cover because I'm a cover fisherman.
I got you. Well, guys, that's some good tips for you to help you find some fish here in North Carolina. David's won an awful lot of money in the fall here in the North Carolina, South Carolina area, and we'll catch you next.